My name is Nick Brazzoni.
And my name is Kyler Tolfree, and together we are revolutionizing fantasy sports.
It's actually a very simple concept. Sports fans take part in the draft, which is them selecting real-life players to create a fantasy team. These fantasy teams then compete based on the player's real-life statistical performance. For example, if a player scores a touchdown, they generate points. Over the last decade, that concept has turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry with over 60 million users in the US alone.
The most joyful thing about fantasy sports and why so many love it, including ourselves, is that draft moment. At this point, it's not so much about fantasy sports, but more about coming together as a community, with friends and family, even coworkers, and spending time together, interacting in an age where sometimes it feels like we're lacking that. And that is one of the big problems the industry is suffering from, in that we spend so much time watching the games, watching the players, that after that draft, we don't get that social interaction. Another problem with fantasy sports is that although it continues to grow, there is no variety in which you can play. Over the past 10 years since the boom of fantasy, every year we draft our team, we watch them play, and that's it. It can get stale at times, boring. We ultimately just end up waiting for next year's draft, that social interaction. We want the industry to grow exponentially, not just linearly.
In addition to the lack of consistent interaction in the fantasy sports industry, companies like FanDuel and DraftKings have yet to dip into the growing world of competitive online gaming, also known as esports. By 2025, esports is projected to generate more viewers than every US sport combined. NBA franchises are already investing in esports teams, and just this last year, we watched professional gamers sign massive deals similar in size to an NFL star.
Esports is the future of sports entertainment, and we believe that if the fantasy sports industry could engage in the world of esports, it could get back to growing at an exponential rate.
So with all that said, we'd like to introduce you to PokerSports, where we bridge that gap between esports and professional sports by creating unique, socially interactive games that make for great entertainment. You get that draft day experience every time you play. Our feature game, Fantasy Stud, uses cards as players and makes for a game that is both strategic and socially engaging.
Last year, using Fantasy Stud, we held our first competitive tournament that generated over 10,000 viewers on Twitch, and it was only the beginning of our mission to flip the fantasy industry on its head. It's time for a change, and that change is PokerSports.
Yeah, I love it.
Honestly, I've enjoyed doing this every week as much, if not more, than FanDuel.